Hello and welcome to Dezzi Raceway in KwaZulu-Natal for the second half of our coverage from this brand new racetrack. In this episode, we catch up with action from the Marlboro Crane Hire Historic Saloons, Investgame Historic Single-Seaters and the Liqui Moly Endurance Cars. History in Motion is proudly brought to you by Midas Sport, Gumtree, Mitsubishi Electric and their associated sponsors.
For me, it's as the promoter really important because I just feel that we have so many competitors from KZN that support the historic tour, and most of those events are in Gauteng. So I think it's very important that they have a so-called home race. And I think what Dezzi's done here is an unbelievable job. I mean, to have built something like this from nothing tells you the guy's got huge dedication. The circuit is a challenging circuit, there's no question. It's not the easiest circuit, but that's good. And I think it's a big leveler because everybody comes here in the same boat. No one's raced here before. So I think that's good. And a lot of people are saying to me, oh, we're going to come back here again next year. I can tell you now, yes, we're coming back because we have to have a KZN race. Now, when you've got a facility like this, you can't not race them.
Mike shares his thoughts on the beginning of the track using his Frankie's Toyota Corolla for gear and speed references.
This is the Dezzi racetrack in KwaZulu-Natal, freshly opened, and I have to tell you from a driver's point of view, this is the exact kind of racetrack we look for. We love the challenge of coming to a place like this. Every single corner is different, every single corner is challenging. It's fantastic. Here we are standing at the approach, the run-up to turn number 2 at the Dezzi Raceway in Port Shepstone in KwaZulu-Natal. This is arguably the most challenging section of racetrack on this particular circuit, but also possibly in the whole of South Africa. This is an exceptionally difficult, very tricky combination of turns that encompass blind turn-in points, adverse cambers, change of gradient, and it really keeps you awake, this part of the racetrack. The approach behind me, as you can see, is very steep uphill. You can't see the turn-in point very easily, and you can't also see the apex point, which is hidden just over that crest. So you need to find your brake marker, you need to remember where the turn-in point is, and turn every single time and hope that somebody hasn't moved the middle of the corner. Because here we are arriving at the turn-in point to turn number 2. As you can see, this concrete piece over here gets quite well used, because this is our marking point to make our turn-in. Our turn-in point is roughly just after this first stack of tyres over here. And as you can see, we're turning in absolutely blind. The apex point is over the crest, so you really want to fight the urge to turn in too tight, because then you're going to apex too early, and you're going to go running really wide as the camber falls away on the outside of the turn. Okay, we're walking towards the apex point of turn number 2. This part of the racetrack, after you've actually turned in, you get a visual on it for the first time. At the turn-in point, this is completely blind. Your apex point is just after the halfway point in this curve. Very critical. If you apex too early, you can see how the road cambers and falls away. That's going to push the race car out towards that concrete strip too early, and then of course onto the grass, which falls away even further. So you really got to try and get your apex point right here so that you can get on the power properly. You don't want to stay off the power too long here, because then you're wasting time as you head down towards turn number 3.
The Marlboro Crane Hire Historic Saloons Classes A to E were looking forward to their time on this twisty, challenging track. The Willis brothers are 2 of the local competitors who welcomed the new track in KZN.
Personally, I'm finding it very difficult to get a lap that flows. The car's strong, the circuit is very tight. I'm sure everyone that you've spoken to has said that. There's a couple of very tricky corners, and if you get them right, the times are going to be much, much better.
It is technical, yes, but I think the more you run it, the better you become at it.
I'm enjoying it. Absolutely fantastic to have a facility like this back in KZN.
Let's see if we can just keep it on the black stuff for now anyway.
Keeping it on the black stuff will be what most of the competitors will be hoping for as they make their way onto the track. 19 cars will line up to take the green light in race 1 of the Marlboro Crane Hire Historic Saloons A to E, with Grant Duckham in his Mark II Escort leading the field. Vanna Fonk in his Mark I Escort is the fastest of the Class G cars, with John McLaughlin the fastest Class E in his Datsun 1200 GX. The lights go out and Grant Duckham has got a great start, catching Rath and the rest of the field napping as he pulls ahead into the first corner. Anton Rath's running a little wide as he rounds turn 1. Werner Fonk in his yellow Escort leads the large fair lane of Peter Lindenburg. Further back, Jannie van Rooyen tries to go round the outside of Gert Boertes. Up the hill and into the blind right hand of the field stream. The green Sirocco of van Rooyen pushing hard to keep up with Boertes. Down into the corkscrew, the saloon stream, and up through the left-hander and into the hairpin. Everyone just trying to get to grips with the track before making any brave moves. On board now with Peter Lindenberg as he makes his way down to the open right hairpin. Anton Rath's going straight on at the bottom of the hill. Looks like brakes or steering have caused him problems. The number 4 Mazda of Anton Rath will go no further in this race. Side by side, Datsun and Escort. Alistair Johnston moves ahead of Gert Boertes as the pair climb the hill. Both machines are pretty evenly matched and the drivers will have to have their wits about them to seize the advantage. Both drivers are performing well and the cars are being pushed to their limits as they acquaint themselves with the undulations of Dezzi Raceway. Through the top complex goes Peter Lindenberg. Pierre de Waal in his nimble Alfa Romeo manages to find a gap and sneak through on the right as they head onto the start-finish straight. Great move there from de Waal, who started from 9th on the grid and has now worked his way up to 3rd. The red and white Datsun of Martin Botha leads the black Datsun of Wesley RAUTENBACH up the hill into the tricky right-hander. Ahead of them is the black Escort of Gert Boertes. Down they drop and Boertes will be feeling the pressure as Botha makes his move. Boertes gets the line into the hairpin and Botha drops back. RAUTENBACH has the best seats in the house watching this battle unfold. RAUTENBACH misses a gear coming out of the hairpin and this will cost him precious time. Van Rooyen comes past RAUTENBACH on the right, making the most of RAUTENBACH's error and moving up a position. Up at the front, Pierre de Waal is making a move on Van der Vonk for 2nd. Down the inside he goes and he takes the advantage out of the corner. On the left we see Grant Duckham, our race leader, pulling over. De Waal holds the advantage and leads Vonk through the tight left over the bridge and moves from 3rd into 1st. Grant Duckham out of the lead, out of his car and out of the race. The green Sirocco of Jannie van Rooyen has found a way past the red and white Datsun of Botha and is rapidly closing on Gert Boertes as they make their way around the top of the track. Into the corkscrew they drop and Boertes will have his mirrors full of the Sirocco. The Sirocco takes the inside line into the left-hander and heading to the hairpin takes the position from Boertes. This gives Martin Botha a chance to close up and he passes Boertes as well as they head to the downhill left-hand sweep. Boertes manages to get himself back up to Botha and the pair run alongside each other. Botha takes the position as Boertes runs wide onto the sand. RAUTENBACH closing right up on the back of him. Heading to the left-hander and RAUTENBACH has a look down the right, putting the pressure on an already unsettled Boertes. Steve Tritter and Meredith Willis side by side into turn 1, and there's nothing between them. This is what racing should be, close, competitive and fair. Meredith Willis in his red Hopsgood Ford Escort moves ahead of Steve Tritter as they reach the top of the track. Awesome racing display from the pair. Into the corkscrew and Gert Boertes is slowing. Willis and Tritter pass the Escort. Jackie Morrison in the blue and white Extreme Salvage Ford Escort also makes his way past the slowing Boertes and through the hairpin. And it looks like a retirement for Boertes. Wesley RAUTENBACH piling the pressure onto Martin Botha as they aim for the left-hander of turn 1 at the end of the start-finish straight. Botha has the advantage and keeps his position as he accelerates away up the hill. RAUTENBACH will now be thinking of another way past as he chases Botha around the top of the track and down to the hairpin. Coming into the corkscrew and RAUTENBACH loses the back. He manages to catch it and bring it back, but not for long as he is off the track and up the embankment. A costly error there for RAUTENBACH. On board now for the replay, and you can see RAUTENBACH is just a passenger there as he tries to keep the car on the black stuff, with not much success. Taking the checkered flag, it's Pierre de Waal in the red Alfa Romeo, 1.4 seconds ahead of Van der Vonk in the yellow Ford Escort. Confirmation of the results, and it is Pierre de Waal with a Class D victory. Peter Lindenberg in his huge Ford Fairlane taking 3rd place with Class C honours, and Martin Botha in his Datsun 1200 GX taking Class E.
During the first 2 or 3 laps, Anton had a problem, and then soon after, Duckham had a problem. Peter Lindenberg and some of the guys were battling behind me, and then all of a sudden Pierre came from nowhere. We had a good scrap for 2 or 3 laps. He passed me, and then from there it was just trying to pass him. Unfortunately, I didn't get it right. He crossed the finish line before me.
It was quite a good race. It's a very tricky track and it keeps you really on your toes because there are lots of places to make mistakes. It's really hard work. This track is tough, and you get out of the car and you are shattered. It's not easy because it's so busy. Every corner is on top of each other, and you really have to try your best to keep clean lines, to keep a good pace. So I had a good dice with Wesley RAUTENBACH. He was sitting behind me all the time, came past me on the straight once, which was nice, you know. But in the end, I think he overcooked it on one of the, what we call the corkscrew right at the top of the track. He overcooked it there and I could get past on his inside. And that was the end of him.
We are underway with race 2, and Peter Lindenberg, running slightly wide, has had a fantastic start and leads the way into turn 1 in the Lazarus Ford Fairlane. Werner Fonk in the Yellow Frog Security Systems Ford Escort drives round the outside. Lindenberg comes out in the lead with Fonk right behind him. Pierre de Waal is there, as is Grant Duckham. Duckham moves up the inside of de Waal into the right-hander and moves into 3rd place. Through the corkscrew, it's Lindenberg, Fonk, Duckham and de Waal at the front. Gert Buerters will be trying to move up the field after his retirement in race 1. Over the bridge and up through the S's, and Grant Duckham is putting pressure onto Peter Lindenberg. The smaller Ford Escort trying to find a way past the wide Ford Fairlane. Up into the final complex, and Lindenberg is having to drive very defensively, but Duckham dives down the inside of the Fairlane and manages to squeeze through, and he moves into the lead. Almost immediately, Duckham begins to put some tarmac between himself and Lindenberg. Fonk has also managed to find a way past Lindenberg. Behind them, we have a rapidly closing Jannie van Rooyen and Alistair Johnston, who is fending off a hard-pushing Pierre de Waal. Up the hill and into the final complex. Van Rooyen having a look up the inside of the Fairlane. Not this time, though. De Waal, on the other hand, makes his move and moves alongside Johnston, and the pair runs side by side through the right-hander. But it's Johnston who has the inside line as they head onto the start-finish straight, and he keeps his position for now. Behind them, Martin Botha and Meredith WILLIS repeat the move. WILLIS has the inside line into the final left-hander, and he moves ahead of Botha. Wesley RAUTENBACH behind them is looking for a way past the black Ford Escort of Gert Buerters. Into turn 1, and Pierre de Waal takes the inside line and the advantage from Alistair Johnston. This track really is throwing up some fantastic dices. On board now with Steve Tritter as he climbs up the hill following this great battle. Buerters and RAUTENBACH move up the inside of WILLIS as they reach the crest. Buerters holds firm and moves ahead of WILLIS. RAUTENBACH, unable to follow him through, slips in behind the red Ford Escort as they make their way through the corkscrew. WILLIS fighting back and keeping the pressure on Buerters. RAUTENBACH in turn keeping the pressure on WILLIS. Fantastic racing as they negotiate their way round the hairpin. Coming over the bridge and into the S's, and Buerters has managed to pull a slight gap as WILLIS and RAUTENBACH do battle. WILLIS manages to keep RAUTENBACH at bay for now. At turn 1, Peter Lindenberg is feeling the pressure from Van Rooyen, de Waal and Johnston, the trio hunting him down as the race progresses. Into the corkscrew, and you get an idea of just how hard Lindenberg has to work to maneuver the big heavy Fairlane through the sequence of bends. The full race Ford Capri of Jimbo Bennett and the extreme salvage Ford Escort of Jackie Morrison duke it out down the main straight, but it's Bennett who leads the pair into turn 1 and up the hill. Bennett runs wide, and this gives Morrison the position as he sails past. Coming down the hill, and Morrison gets a bit out of shape heading into the fast right-handers. Bennett is looking for any chance to pounce, and he makes the most of Morrison's slight error and powers his way past and leads the Escort into the left-hander and over the bridge. The checkered flag is out, and it's Grant Duckham who takes victory in the second Marlboro Crane Hire Historic Saloons Class ATE race here at Dezzi Raceway. So Duckham takes Class B honours. Anton Raths, coming home in second, takes victory in Class C. Werner Fonk in third, wins Class D, and Gert Buerters takes Class E ahead of Wesley RAUTENBACH.
I don't know where I finished, but into the first corner I led. And I led for, call it 7/8 of the first lap, and then the smaller cars started to get me, and it was a tough race. But I made absolutely sure that Jannie van Rooyen's little Sirocco had the widest, biggest, longest, most pain-in-the-butt Fairlane in front of him for a long time. Sadly, I had to give up like 3/4 of a lap from the end.
Peter unfortunately went wide. Unfortunately for him, he went a little bit wide. So Pierre and myself I managed to sneak on his inside, and it was just, you know, he just couldn't keep us behind anymore.
I started in pole, and that man there, Peter Lindenberg, came on my left with all the horsepower he had, and then into the corner. Obviously he has to slow down a very heavy car, and that slowed me down, and a couple of guys then overtook me on my right hand, on the outside, in other words, into the rise up to the right hander. So I just had to back out of it, you know, because I couldn't get past that big Ford Fairlane.
Join us after the break for some more great action from the Midas Historic Tour.